Sam Konstas struggles on a tricky whacker wicket. Marnus Labuschagne makes an emphatic statement, and his Victorian teenager Ollie Peake proved himself to be a star of the future. Welcome to Domesticated. I'm Justin Edwards. Nick Savage from Fox Cricket is alongside me. Nick, cracking round of Shield cricket, wasn't it?
So many fascinating storylinings intertwining throughout all the games. It was really exciting. We spoke last week about all the different batting candidates for the Ashes. Some absolutely nailed it. Some really struggled for a variety of different reasons. And yeah, there's so much to unpack from 3 games of cricket. It's great.
Let's start at the top of the order. Sam Konstas, couple of fails for New South Wales, but it was a very tricky pitch over at the Wacker.
It's been a similar storyline for him. In the first innings, beaten on the inside edge by, what's got to be said, a pretty fantastic delivery by Joel Paris. The in-swinger, it's been his Achilles heel for a while now, and then in the second dig, flashing out a wide one, caught in point, something we saw quite often actually in the West Indies. It's just been more of the same stuff we've come to expect from Sam Konstas. Obviously, he had a great pre-season. He got a century over in India, but on these Australian decks, when they offer a bit of spice, a bit of help for the bowlers, he just can't seem to find his way through that opening passage. Tricky conditions, has to be said. It was a low-scoring game. I think the team only passed 200 once across those 4 days. And Greg Shipperd, the New South Wales coach, came out and defended him, but runs a currency. He needs to start converting, otherwise he's going to miss out on the test side.
It's actually really similar to the West Indies, which were also tricky pitches for bowlers, and Konstas struggled there. It is worth noting that everybody in the top 3 struggled in that match. I think the average for the top 3 was 9 across the 4 innings of the match. So nobody got runs in the top 3, but he tried probably 2 different approaches. He got a proper working over in the first innings from Joel Paris, who is one of the premier bowlers in Shield cricket. He went defensive, then Paris got a proper in-swinger to hit him on the pad. Then he went way more aggressive in the second innings, got a couple of boundaries away, but that ended up being his downfall as well.
It's just, yeah, as we've come to expect from him, he seems to be stuck in 2 minds about what process to take. We saw that between the 2 different innings. An undeniably talented player, but is he one of the 2 best openers in the country at the moment? Based on what we've seen the past 4 days, perhaps not. There's a few other people kind of putting their hand up.
Yeah. Still time for him. A couple of Shield matches before that Ashes squad gets named. Now, the opposite of a tricky pitch was Allan Border Field over the weekend. Marnus Labuschagne, regardless of how flat the wicket was, 160 runs and terrific innings from him.
He's someone who we spoke about for ages, hasn't been getting hundreds, basically. It's been about 18 months before this week that he had a first-class 100. Starts the summer with the one-day Cup 100 when he scored it, basically run a ball. And this one, he got 160 odd, as you said, batting at a strike rate of about 80. He is really upping his ante. We saw in the test side, the last 12 months he was in the test side, very defensive, struggling to get going, very slow starts. We saw in the Border Gavaskar Trophy. He is going along at a really quick rate at the moment. This is a very different Marnus Labuschagne. He's really actually worked a lot, having been dropped from the test side ahead of the West Indies. He's put the work in. And, I mean, we seem to throw forward to the Ashes a lot, understandably, but he seems to be in that best 11 at this stage. He looks fantastic.
And that's more than the actual scoring of the runs, which are, of course, important. It was more about how he looked. He looked close to being back to his best. And his best is not just being in the top 6 batters in the country, it's being in the top 6 batters in the world, probably. And he looked close to that. Fluid drives, pull shots, it looked so good. And if he's looking like that, it's probably going to be pretty simple for the selectors. Marnus is in, and then you're worrying about where else you're putting the all-rounder, or if he's at 3 or opening. But if he's batting like that, they're going to want him in, and you'd suggest he's probably, I would think now, he's probably more likely than unlikely to play the first test right at the moment.
I mean, a former world #1, and it showed this week. The selectors have probably wanted him to get off to a great start this summer because it kind of fixes a problem for them. If Marnus wasn't scoring runs, they probably would have had to gamble on an unknown, probably give someone a debut or go back to Konstas, and they probably didn't want to do that. Marnus feels safe. He's played the Ashes before. He's succeeded in the Ashes before. He's come up against the England Quicks several times over the past few years. And let's be honest, the Australian team looks stronger when there's a good Marnus in that top 6. So, yes, it's pretty exciting for the national selectors. George Bailey was there in Brisbane watching that knock, which certainly doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, that helps. Do it in front of him. He would have also seen a century from Matt Renshaw. He's then been picked in the one-day squad. I suspect he was probably getting picked in that one-day squad, whether he got the runs or not, because his list A form over the last year or so has been extremely impressive. Now he goes to the one-day squad. Do you think that is a positive for him in terms of his test chances? Because he's in front of the Australian Ides, in front of big crowds, if he performs there? Or is it better taking better for Marnus Labuschagne, who's missed out on that one-day squad, will now go back and have a couple more Shield games.
I think you're absolutely right in that for Renshaw, it probably does hurt his Ashes chances, let's be real. I mean, when people are scoring hundreds in the Shield, that's when the conversations around Test chances come up. Really for Renshaw, his mind should be kind of looking at 2027 World Cup. He's a chance of actually being that 50-over squad. As you mentioned, he's been so great for Australia A and Queensland in the 50-over cricket. I could see him playing a role, maybe instead of Marnus, at that 3 or 4 position in the ODI.
Smith retired now from one day.
Exactly right. There's that missing cog there in the middle order, that kind of anchor role, which Smith did for nearly a decade so successfully. If Renshaw can have a go in this India series, nail it, he should keep half an eye on 2027. Maybe that's where he should slightly shift focus to. If he does well in that India series, there's every chance he could get an Ashes call. But as we've mentioned, Marnus is probably more likely. We'll touch on Jake Weatherald later. He looks like a very strong opener. Renshaw maybe needs to sort of shift his national focus towards the white ball stuff.
And it's one of the things that the selectors have to deal with. There's so many different parts. You're going to have Renshaw playing white ball cricket, but against a really strong Indian attack. How do you weigh up those runs versus Sheffield Shield runs? How do you weigh up runs at that Allan Border field pitch that we saw on the weekend? Whereas if Konstas put on 70 odd at the Wacker on that pitch, that's probably as valuable as the 150. So that's everything that the selectors have to weigh up, and that's why we have human beings, selectors that pick teams, and we don't pick teams on the stats and on spreadsheets. So that's all to watch. Also on that flat wicket in Queensland was Jake Weatherald. Couple of 50s, I think it was 67 and 57. Not bad, like average of 60 is great. Probably needs 100 or 2 to really contend for that spot.
And in that first innings, he was dropped at first by Uzun Khawaja, which is an interesting little storyline there. He looked great, as we've seen from the last 12 months from him. Very fluid, very attacking, getting off to a strong start. But as you touched on, it really is a matter of converting those starts into triple figures, because for the casual viewer, people only really pay attention to hundreds. And in what was such a high-scoring game, the 50s and 60s don't seem terribly valuable. So. But I think, it's important that he got his summer off to a strong start. Unlike some of the other names, Nathan McSweeney, Cameron Bancroft, who really struggled this week, the fact that he's gotten his summer off to a strong start, he's clearly in the runs, he's looking good. If there is that opportunity there in the Test summer or in the near future, he'll be ready because he's in fine form. He looks great. He's in the form of his career. And
it might not be a case of Weatherald or Marnus. There may well be room for both. If they choose to go with only the one all-rounder, and we'll talk about Cameron Green a little bit later, if Green or Webster bat 6, 2 and 3 are both available. You've got the opener alongside Khawaja and potentially the number 3. And if they put Marnus back at 3, there's still room for Weatherald or Konstas or any of these guys that we're talking about. So just because Labuschagne has taken his chance this one Shield game, there's still a couple more to go. There's still plenty of cricket to play out before the Ashes, right?
It really does come down to what the national selectors want. Since David Warner's retirement, they've stuck by this, the best 6 batters in the country, and we'll manipulate them and fit them into the top 6. And we've seen Steve Smith open, Marnus Labuschagne open. They've kind of manipulated the team in a way to make this work. Or do they pick the players based on their preferred role? Marnus 3, Steve Smith 4. Green, realistic at 6, is probably where he's the strongest at the moment, and then a specialist opener alongside Khawaja. That would mean Webster, unfortunately, missing out. What we haven't touched on is he missed this round of Shield because of a minor ankle injury. He's meant to be back for the next Shield round. But it really just comes down to what the selectors want from this top 6. And we don't have a firm clue of what that is just yet, but maybe the next couple of Shield rounds will help make the picture a little bit clearer.